My wife of 10 years cheated on me during a girls' trip, and now she's begging me to stay. But I told her to fuck off and left her. I'm 39 years old, and my wife is 33. We've been together for 13 years. She recently went away on a girls' trip, and I wasn't worried at all. I've never had a reason to distrust her. She has never done anything to give me cause for concern. It's not like she was even going abroad. She was going to Butland, half an hour away, for God's sake. She went with her sister and a few other girls. She called me up this morning, and I didn't expect anything other than her checking in. She's only been away one night of a 3-night trip. When I answered, she was crying and incoherent. When I finally calmed her down, she told me she had slept with someone else the night before. Supposedly, she met a guy, and she approached them. They flirted a little and danced together, and she thought that was as far as it would go. But he supposedly just charmed her into a kiss, which turned into making out, which turned into her asking him to walk her back to her hotel. That turned into them having sex. She says nothing was amiss, he wasn't pushy or weird, and they actually had sex multiple times because she would say they needed to stop, and he would stop immediately. Then, after a few minutes, she'd want him to carry on, and he would. He supposedly never even finished because of the stop starting. This supposedly went on for 3 hours, and she eventually said stop for good and asked him to leave, and he did. The guy is supposedly 10 years younger than her, and she said she lied and told him she was going through a divorce. She says she doesn't know what came over her. She just wanted to see if she still had it. But she got carried away. 14 years married for 10, and we have a 7-year-old daughter. I want to leave her. She's begging me not to, offering marriage counseling, never going out again, never drinking again, etc. I've always been a one-chance sort of guy. I just told her to go F herself and have been ignoring her since about 10 a.m. Now her friends and sister are calling me too. They apparently had no idea she'd even gone home with him. They saw them talking but thought nothing of it. I just want them all to leave me alone. I told my mom about it and she said I should think of my family. She added that my wife seems genuinely remorseful and didn't try to hide anything, coming clean straight away. She pointed out that it's not like she had an affair, and that is bad as it is, but this is the best case scenario. After that conversation, I feel like I'm insane. Am I wrong for not even considering forgiving her? Some relevant comments. You're not wrong at all. She broke your trust. Now every time she goes anywhere, you'll be left wondering, will she do this again? It wasn't just a one-time thing. She admitted to you that she slept with him multiple times. Turn off your phone and take your daughter out for a meal. Spend some time with her before your wife gets home, starts love bombing you both, and tries to strong-arm you. You can forgive and forget, but understand that you do not have to accept and stay. Please understand that I didn't mean he has to forget what she's done and stay with her. I said to forgive her for what she's done, but that doesn't mean you have to stay because, at the end of the day, a very important boundary was broken by choice. He also deserves the same choice to say, I choose to walk away from this because of your actions, which disrespected my boundaries. When I say forget, I mean to forget the person she was before the transgression. That person is no longer there. The person you love didn't cheat on you. That person is now in the past. So, forget that version of her and understand that the person before you now is someone entirely new. You should act accordingly based on who they are now, not who they once were. Trust is broken, you are not wrong. Some people do count cheating, but personally I couldn't forgive this. 3 hours of deception is a long time, and she knew it was wrong. I'm so sorry, OP. I get the one and done dude. Leave all those times she was stopping the other guy to continue. She was probably questioning whether she should keep going, and guess what? She did multiple times. Update. So, my wife came home tonight after giving me the day to cool off. I asked to see the guy. I don't know why, maybe I'm a sucker for punishment. And of course, he looks like a superhero, so that's great. For the record, my wife is beautiful, perfect teeth, works out regularly, etc. I am not ugly, but I am just a typical English guy, not overweight but could probably lose a few pounds, a bit of a dad bod, but still have a full head of hair, which is nice. I always felt so lucky to be with her. She was an amazing partner, an amazing mother, funny, intelligent, etc. I asked her to lay out what happened to me in more detail. I wanted to catch any lies, changes in the story, test her consistency. She basically says she was at the bar, and the guy was stood next to her. They glanced at each other and she said, "Where did you come from?" to him. He asked what she meant, and she says she told him he was the first handsome man she'd seen, and that's how the conversation got started. As for her telling him she was divorcing, that happened when he glanced down, noticed her ring and asked her about it. Apparently, once she said that, he went on to say, "Not like I give a F either way. What a gent." I asked if she thinks he could have slipped her anything, and she says it's impossible because they only did shots together. I asked if she took any substances, and she admitted to doing coke with her friends, which isn't all that surprising if you're from the UK and you're into drinking culture. It's pretty standard. A few of you seem to be American, so let me explain what exactly a Butland is. It's basically a holiday resort, usually for families, but they sometimes host adult-exclusive weekends where it's a pretty big party place. It's cheap, grimy, and can be a lot of fun. People dress up, there's DJs, live music, multiple venues, and late-night entertainment, etc. As for people saying she got caught by her friends, she actually didn't. She disappeared with the guy and went home with him, texted her friends she was tired and wanted to go to sleep. And as they are on the resort in the hotel, it's like a 3-minute walk. They all just said to text when she was safe in her room. She was sharing a room with her sister, but she was in their other friend's room drinking and doing coke because they thought she was sleeping. She told the guy to leave at around 6 a.m. because she thought her sister might be coming back soon, as that's when the party usually winds down. I asked her how many times she made love with the guy, and she said 4 or 5, lasting between 5 to 10 minutes each time. Apparently, even after cheating, she never thought she'd sleep with the guy. She says she just wanted to give him oral, so she did that. But the guy said he could only finish through sex. She didn't believe him until 20 minutes later, he still wasn't done. So she gave up and climbed on top of him. But then, after about 5 minutes, she thought, "What the F am I doing?" and got off him. Then she laid there and cuddled him and drank more. And then 10 minutes later, they would be touching each other again. This repeated 4 or 5 times. She says that she kept thinking it was wrong, but then would think, it's too late now anyway, so might as well carry on, and basically go through a loop of that. I asked her why she felt the need to see if she still had it, and she said, "Since I hit 30, I've been self-conscious of my aging. That when I spot a new wrinkle or something, it drives me to tears." She mentioned that chatting to the guy made her feel young again, and she latched on to that. Also, apparently, the guy was there with a girl who my wife said looked like a younger version of herself. The guy pointed her out to my wife and said, "That girl over there watching us has a crush on me," and laughed about it. After he had been talking to my wife for about 30 minutes, the girl had enough, walked over and kicked the table, spilling the guy's drink, and then stormed off. My wife says that the guy picking her over a younger woman drove her ego crazy, and that was when she decided to kiss him. I asked her why, she even told me, and she said that when she woke up, she saw I'd sent a selfie of me and our daughter eating pizza together. It sent her into a nervous breakdown. She was wailing and sobbing so loud it woke up her sister. That's when she confessed. Her sister told her she was insane for what she did and wasn't very comforting, and then left the room, mad at her, which made it worse. That's when she called me. I have asked her to leave the house for a few days, and she is staying at her mother's house while I decide what I want to do. She begged me not to make her leave, but she did when I said it was the least she could do after blowing up our entire lives over wrinkles making her sad. As for my mother, she still thinks I should forgive her. For context, my dad died about a year ago, and my wife has really been a rock for my mom. I cannot see her as much as I would like due to my work, but my wife is a self-employed lash and nail tech and has a lot of free time. She uses this time to spend with my mom, to keep her company, do her hair, and have girly days to try and make sure she doesn't get lonely. Like I said, she was such a perfect partner. Though I don't think my mom is a cheater or whatever. She is very angry at my wife, but she loves her and she just wants everything to be okay. My daughter has no idea what is happening. She was already asleep when my wife came and went again. She will just think mommy is still on holiday. I still have no idea what I'm gonna do, honestly. I'm still reeling, but that's basically everything. Some comments. What happens when she turns 40? 50? When she gets her first gray hair, menopause? She cheated because she was scared of getting older, but she's still going to keep getting older. Not to mention, from the story, while the guy seems like a jerk, she doesn't seem like a great role model either. If she was totally okay with helping him hurt that other girl's feelings, her sister told her she was insane for what she did. Your wife's sister is absolutely on point. This was rough to read through as an outsider. I can't imagine how crappy it is to experience firsthand. Story 2. By 33 female, I'm a single mother to a 6-year-old girl. I've raised my daughter all on my own. She was born from a one-night stand with a now former friend, a 37-year-old male. We never got together, and he refused to be involved in my pregnancy or my daughter's first 4 years of life. I was stressed out emotionally because it's a big change, but I never asked for child support or forced him to be involved. I have enough income to send my daughter to private school. I'm perfectly fine on my own. The issue started when he reappeared from wherever he went and decided he wanted visitation. He's not in my daughter's birth certificate. The father is listed as unknown. He wanted to have that amended, but I said no. I told him that the best he'll get is to meet her in outings with myself or my daughter's godparents, and he agreed. However, he's been constantly pressuring to get parental rights. The court already gave him a big fat no unless he pays 4 years of child support, which with his income goes somewhere around $230,000. He hasn't paid a cent. My daughter doesn't even call him dad or recognize him as her dad. She calls him Mr. I keep it very clean. I never bad-mouthed him or made up stories when she asked about her father. I used to say it was just the two of us, even during court. The assigned CPS agent testified that my daughter had no affection or clear relationship with her biological father. Now, the main issue happened in a PDA meeting. He would say things like, "My family thinks," or "What is best for my family?" I didn't agree with him, and I voiced my concern by saying, "My daughter has different needs, and those are priority." He was clearly angry after the meeting. There was a moment for teachers and parents to mingle and just talk about how the kids are doing. One of the teachers approached me to apologize, saying she didn't know my husband and I didn't like a project she was doing with the kids. I told her I had no husband, and my daughter loved the project and wanted to be part of it. A teacher then told me that my former friend was going around talking like he's my husband and he represents the family. I saw red. I walked to him and very loudly told him we needed to talk in private in the parking lot. I told him we were not a family and that he either would respect that I am the only one that can make decisions on my daughter's education, or he wouldn't be involved. He went on about being her biological father. Then I reminded him he had not paid a cent for the pregnancy, my daughter's needs, or even the private school my daughter is in. He hasn't tried to see my daughter since, which she doesn't mind at all. I asked her, "I do feel a bit bad about what I said. Am I the idiot?" I wanted to add this because the PMS are driving me insane. He has the money to pay child support, he chose not to pay. He was never prohibited from being involved. He had my phone number. I sent him pictures and invited him to birthdays and other big celebrations. He never came. PSA, we are not in the US. Update. I 33 female going to preface this by saying my 6-year-old daughter's father, a 37-year-old male, I'm going to call him Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand, and I don't like people calling him my ex since it makes it seem we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, but I decided to raise my child alone since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the whole pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't do what he wanted, he sued, and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support and then we could revisit giving him actual rights. But he has refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner. No child support needed, with the agreement that anything legal, medical, or educational would not involve him. He pushed the boundaries and we had a fallout after that. We didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner, and finding out Jeff is married and had never told his family he had had a child was quite a shock. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers. It was uncomfortable the whole time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle, not the actual name she used, but it was that different from my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time, she pretty much ignored me, but Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bide my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger went, "Oh, Gabby, you need potty? Let mommy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her and saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down, like she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain, or I would be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and suggested I could just leave my daughter with his parents. No way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside, and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that. All I'll say is that it was sudden and nobody's fault. As I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues for his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife, without telling me. That's why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what his plan was when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. "Well, I'll just send Katie back with you, and it will be just like before." I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusions. And I would not let that woman within miles from my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family. It's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I am making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation. This isn't an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life monetarily. She has a trust and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She doesn't need child support for quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I would be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've taken the decision that child support or possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety is always first. This isn't so much a real update as just letting people know we are home and safe. My daughter is spending the rest of her vacation with her godparents on another trip while I work on things. Moving might be something I'll be looking into, though. That is a long-term plan, considering all it takes. I won't share too many details on what my lawyer is going to be doing, but we are absolutely going to push for an R. I might not post for some time, at least not until things settle. I do appreciate all the support and good advice. I'm taking a lot of it into account as I plan how to move forward. Update. Hey everyone. I decided to post the last update since I will be going full silent for a long period. For those that didn't know, I'm right now dealing with my daughter's father and his delusion. He wants to use my daughter as a therapy doll for his wife, who recently lost a child. A lot of people were worried for my daughter and me, and I truly appreciate it. We're both safe. She's currently having a great vacation with her godparents, and I'm currently making my own arrangements to move on. My lawyer is working hard on keeping everything in order. I know AS and desist was his first action, and we are going for no contact. He says we have a solid case and hopefully this will be resolved relatively fast. and by that I mean a year or two. We did get a temporary restraining order. It's only until our first court date, but after that, it could be extended. I haven't had direct contact with Jeff. He lawyered up too and tried to send a threat to take full custody. My lawyer laughed at it since his reasoning was parental alienation, except I have proof that I tried for years to have him involved. Apparently, turning in a few emails showing my attempts was enough to get them to change parental alienation to a different reasoning. My lawyer is not worried, in all honesty. For now, I've decided, after much thinking, that moving is going to be necessary. It won't be something I can do on a whim, but I'll be looking into new houses within the month to hopefully move sometime this year. School will remain the same, but we will be speaking to the admin to make sure only certain people can pick her up. Part of that decision has been to hire a private driver. He's someone I absolutely trust and has worked for relatives in the past, so I'm very comfortable with the idea, and so is my daughter. Now, I just have to make sure they don't go for fast food every day after school. Things, in all honesty, are not that scary right now. I have a good lawyer, good evidence, and my little girl is happy and healthy, so I'm just going to focus on working things little by little. Because of the legal proceedings, I don't think I'll be posting any updates anytime soon. To those sending me PMs telling me I'm horrible for keeping my daughter from her father or telling me I shouldn't have had her in the first place, please kindly speak to the void. I'm too busy. I had no intentions to do a new post, but today absolutely took the cake. To those that don't know, my daughter, 6, was born from a one-night stand with Jeff. We were never romantically involved. It was a simple one-night stand, and we did use contraceptives, but they failed. It happens. A few months ago, Jeff went full psycho and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife, who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now we're in the middle of some legal issues. Now, for today, I thankfully didn't deal with Jeff himself. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I am going to be very blunt. I am completely detached from religion. I'm not an atheist, just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church, which is the leading religion in my home country. I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today, I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in. At first, things seemed rather polite, shake hands, asking how things were, the usual chit-chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate, his words. I was taken aback and agreed I was a single mother, but I didn't see how I lived in debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter was prohibited from spending time with her father, and that I'm constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. He expressed his worry and thought it would be best if I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than see me sell myself. Angry was an understatement, but I did keep it civil, simply because I was at work and had no intentions of screaming at a religious man there. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me. She lived a safe and happy life. My personal affairs were my own, and I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I knew it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church, and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. I laughed and simply said no. I once again recommended he leave, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left, saying he would try to speak to me again when I wasn't being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office again, and I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have a security feed from him walking into my office. Thank you again to everyone sending well wishes on my previous post. We are still working on that move, but school is back, and she's loving it. We still have that temporary restraining order against Jeff and his wife, and school officials know it. Update. Hey, this came up far earlier than planned, and while I'm happy to announce my daughter and I are finally free, there are some sad news mixed in. Just to recap, I, a 34-year-old female, now have a daughter 6 years old with Jeff, a 37-year-old male. We never dated. It was a one-night stand where protection failed. I never regret having my daughter, despite Jeff demanding me to end the pregnancy, then refusing to be involved for her first 4 years of life. 2 years ago, he reappeared, demanding parental rights. Our country's courts denied it since he was not on her birth certificate, a decision he made, and he had never paid any kind of child support. It turned out he didn't care for my daughter. All he wanted was to use her as a replacement for a child he lost with his wife. Now, before I go to the update, I did get a lot of questions to answer. 1. Did I know Jeff was married? He wasn't when we had our one-night stand. 2. Are you interested in Jeff? No, I'm a romantic, meaning I don't develop romantic feelings. I don't think that's a healthy mindset for a long-term partner, so I refuse to date. I was okay with one-night stands until I had my daughter. 3. Why did you send information to Jeff? Because my mother recommended it, and she was absolutely right. Had I not done so, he could have sued me for parental alienation by trying to get him involved. I actually came out far better situated to prove I'm not trying to keep him away out of spite, but because I truly think he's a danger. 4. Why don't you talk more about your daughter's emotional status? No offense, but I give just enough information on my 6-year-old. I don't think people are bad. But this is the internet. I don't really need to speak in-depth details on my child's mental state or her actions. What I want to share about myself is fine. I'm a full-grown woman. My child is another matter. I don't even post pictures of her on social media. All you need to know for the people asking is she's happy, healthy, and has a father figure in her godfather. She's a normal, rambunctious little girl. 5. Why was Jeff arrested? He got into a drunk fight, assault charges. It's completely unrelated to my kid, but could have been used for custody matters. It ended up being unnecessary. Now, to the update. While our case has yet to be reviewed, we were scheduled for September 2025. Jeff's lawyer contacted mine to say they were dropping their demand for parental rights about 6 weeks ago. Jeff formally agreed to drop any claims for rights or responsibility to my daughter. I know a lot of people are going to wonder, but what about child support or inheritance? Keep reading. It should explain why it is not worth it. My lawyer went over the documents to make sure it wasn't a legal trap of some sort, and he confirmed they were exactly that. He wasn't asking for anything in return, just to drop. I didn't question it more. Just had it signed, and now we need to wait a couple of weeks to get confirmation everything is done. Since both parties agree on this, it should be relatively quick to get it through the courts. If it sounds weird that he suddenly just gave up, I thought the same to be sincere. I was half tempted to snoop around, but I was way too busy making arrangements. As some people suggested, I will be moving. I won't leave the country I live in, but I plan to move closer to my support system. My daughter's godparents, turns out, there's a property less than 5 minutes away from them on sale. There's no home built yet, so I have a lot to do, but that's my intended new home. We also got not 1, not 2, but 3 dogs. The cat probably is planning my slaughter. So, with all of these changes, I have to admit I didn't have time to snoop. The thing is, the whole thing came to me rather than me needing to look. I met with Jeff's in-laws, and it was pure coincidence. I was waiting on some things in a store, and they were there. I had met them in passing at that mess of a Christmas party last year, but this was really the first time we talked. My daughter was thankfully at school since the topic was heavy. They recognized me and asked if I could speak to them. I wasn't sure, but I decided to be polite and offered to buy them a coffee. They were very nice, not entitled at all. They explained they were sorry for their daughter's behavior. She had not been the same since she lost her child. Those who called out that she was using her dead baby's name on my daughter were right, and they just wanted to clear the air with me. I told them I didn't personally blame them, but I couldn't forgive their daughter, and she was a big worry. That's when things hit the fan. The mother started crying, and the father explained Jeff's wife passed away. Self-inflicted. I feel like crap for the things I told them. I apologized, but they were very gracious and told me they knew I had no idea. We talked a little about their grandchild. I found out what Jeff told me about how his child died was a lie, and now I don't feel so kind as to keep it wrapped up. He shook an infant because she was colic. If you don't know what that is, it's when babies just cry nonstop. I was angry. I'm still angry. No one should ever shake a baby to the point they pass away. That's just diabolical, in my opinion. He had told me she just passed away from sudden infant mortality, which is a common thing here. Unfortunately, they talked about Jeff and how he's sworn up and down I would agree with his idea to have my daughter pass for their lost grandchild, and that would help their daughter. They were not really thinking straight, and I get it. Jeff is a charmer, and mix that with grief, it goes nowhere. Well, there were other things said, but the main thing was they didn't want any resentment on my part towards their family or their daughter. I told them that I don't hate them or their daughter and how sorry I was they had to go through all of this. They gave me a picture of my daughter's half-sister. She was a very cute baby, and I plan to one day explain things to my daughter. I think it's important she knows. I also know where Jeff's wife and her baby are buried. I think not yet, but when things aren't as raw as they are right now, I'll take my daughter to visit her sister. I called my lawyer after to give him these new details. He did reprimand me for speaking to the laws alone, but he understood the situation. My lawyer is a good friend of mine, and he tends to be very blunt when I make mistakes. He promised me he's making sure that whatever ties could exist between Jeff and my daughter are fully cut legally. More things have come to light too. People were right. Jeff was pretty much lying to everyone, trying to paint himself as this saintly father that couldn't possibly be part of his one surviving daughter's life. A lot of people immediately judge single mothers here as home wreckers or Petes. So, I had a few bad encounters with people throwing insults and threats my way. Another thing that came up, which was relatively recent, was about 2 weeks before he gave up. Jeff began telling people he offered to marry me, but I refused him, that I was always after his money. Thankfully, that one lie didn't go far with most people who know both of us, since I've made it very clear throughout my life that I'm never getting married and I don't need his money. I got into a high-income job to care for my mom and now my daughter. I don't really care for excessive luxury. His wife passed away not long before he sent the agreement. He didn't want anything to do with my daughter. He does explain why Jeff gave up, but I still think he's the most horrible human being that exists, an entitled, slaughterous idiot. He felt entitled to my daughter, he failed his wife and slaughtered an innocent baby. And I know he knows I'm posting this, so if you read this, Jeff, I hope if karma really gives you everything you deserve. I want to say more, but I don't want to break rules, but yeah, here's the good news mixed with terrible news. I might update this post if anything else happens, but I want to believe this is over. I just want to close this chapter and look into a new start. Small disclaimer. I don't know how he got away with slaughtering his child. I have no access to police records or investigation. I'm not part of law enforcement or involved with any judicial entity. For people asking me for more information on it, I'm really sorry, but I can't give you a full legal case. I personally don't know how some people get access to police records that easily, because I certainly don't have access to them. All the info I have is what I'm told by others, or what my lawyer can find. Update. Well, it's been 3 months, and there's good news all around. We're finally free of Jeff, and life is pretty much back to normal. My daughter only asked about Jeff once when we went to the park, where we would meet him, to make sure Mr. was not there. We also went together to her baby sister's grave. I explained to her as best as I could. I don't think she understands yet what the situation with her half-sister is, but we will go through it little by little. Another big change is I'm dating someone. And no, I'm still a romantic. My best friend, who's been in the US until recently, came back and asked me out. When I told him I was aromantic, he told me there was no pressure for romantic feelings. He just wanted a partner he could trust. While this isn't a traditional relationship, it's really nice. I adore him as a friend, even if I don't see him in any romantic way. He's met my daughter, but we're not doing anything official, like moving in, for a very long time. Through the gray area, I heard Jeff is apparently engaged again, too. I think it was a very good thing we made that no-contact agreement. If he ever tries anything with my daughter, that piece of paper will be enough for the court to tell him to go away. Overall, we're happy and safe. I'm grateful for all the support here through the hell that was dealing with Jeff.